The sports card market is highly illogical. Many times prices just don't correspond to performance, championships, or anything more than hype. But that doesn't mean it always stays that way. Today, I'm identifying some of the most undervalued sports cards in 2025, and I'm gonna share them all with you right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Market Movers video. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and today I'm really excited just to talk about cards that might be undervalued. And I gotta be really careful. I wanna be really clear. There's no promises on anything here. What I'm going to do is analyze things that I think don't make sense. Pricing differences, pricing gaps, stuff that just, when I look at Market Movers, when I look at the data, I say, why is there such a big price discrepancy between this player and this player, or this set and this set, or these variations are super expensive and these case hits aren't. A lot of stuff like that, and we're gonna talk about all of it. I'm gonna share some of my thoughts, including full transparency to any copies of cards that I own, why I bought them, a lot of stuff that we're gonna get into, and I think it's really exciting. So if you want access to all this data today, you can download Market Movers, go to marketmoversapp.com, use promo code DIVE, and you'll get 20% off any membership tier for life. So let's get into it. And I'm gonna point out first here, we're gonna talk about some players. We're gonna go basketball, football, and baseball. And I stick to those three sports because those are the three sports I know the best. I get a lot of comments about, well, I guess hockey doesn't exist or soccer or whatever. Look, I don't know those sports as well. I'm somewhat familiar. I like them. They're not in my top three sports. They're also not the biggest sports, which is not why I don't cover them. It's because I don't know them as well. But I'm going to start out, I'm going to point out this Shaquille O'Neal card here in this case here. And to me, Shaquille O'Neal, if I had to actually pick one player, maybe across any sport, who I think is the most undervalued, it is Shaq. I don't understand his market and why his cards are so affordable relative to other players. He's iconic. He's a top 10 player of all time, but he's got an incredibly magnetic personality. He does a lot of giveaways, a lot of charity work, a lot of other things. He seems to tick all of the boxes. He was utter dominance. A lot of people refer to him as the most dominant basketball player of all time. They use that word. And we see the Shaq card, and it's $45. And I want to show you something. I want to show you a feature in Market Movers, okay? There's a feature in Market Movers that is called intelligence reports or intelligence ratios. And what it allows you to do is essentially to compare like cards of similarity with one variable being different. So you can compare PSA 10s to 9s. You can compare Prism Silvers to Prism base cards. Or in this case, I'm comparing players. And I'm comparing Penny Hardaway, who I collected as a child, to Shaquille O'Neal, who I also liked as a child, but I'm comparing their cards. And over the last 30 days, on 33 different sales that we're tracking in Market Movers where the same card sold of those two players, it's basically a 1-to-1 ratio between Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. Now, there's a really important caveat here. Hype and nostalgia drive a lot, and a lot of people collected Penny in the 90s. A lot of people, again, myself included. Because of that, his market stays somewhat propped up. There are a lot of Penny collectors still. But if I forecast out into the future, I have a theory that as more people look to collect GOATs, true GOATs, not hype and nostalgia and childhood memories, but like the best players of all time, Shaq typically falls almost consensus on everyone's top 10 list, at least right now. And it's hard for me to see him in my lifetime falling past 15 on the all-time greats list, even with who we don't know might be out there coming down the pipeline. Penny is not even in the top 100 for those. So what I'm looking at in Market Movers is these ratios that shows it's a 1-to-1, and I can actually find that Planet Metal card. I'm gonna scroll down here, and I can see, for example, that this PSA 9 Planet Metal of Penny Hardaway, now it is a lower pop 19, sold for $190 in the last 30 days, whereas Shaq sold for $136. That's a 1.4 ratio difference. And there are a number of examples like this. If we were to extend the time frame out beyond 30 days, you would find there are a lot of Penny cards that sell for more than Shaq. It's really confusing to me. I just don't understand it. And I think Shaq, as we kind of move on, he's going to start to age. And I hate to say it, hopefully it's not anytime soon. At some point, Shaq, like so many of the all-time greats, like Bill Russell, is going to pass on. And people are, at some point, they have to wake up and go, holy cow, this guy was peak. Now, there's one thing working against Shaq, and it's his rookie cards, in that they're not particularly remarkable. 1992, there's a lot of them. There's nothing that really stands out. That was like before the insert and parallel boom, which kind of started more in like 95, 96. So that kind of puts an issue on it. But like, if you're looking at his all-time great cards, his PMGs, his Star Rubies, his top inserts, gold refractors, stuff like that, even post-playing years stuff like Panini products, Prism Golds, I have to think that Shaq's market catches up over time. So I'm big on Shaq. Another player I'm big on, Tim Duncan, another top 10. Number one, consensus, number one power forward of all time for anybody who understands anything about basketball. And what I want to do now is I actually want to compare Tim Duncan, and I'm going to look at his prices compared to Allen Iverson. Now, there's a difference here. There is something different compared to the Shaq and Penny thing. But if I look at Iverson, it's the same story. 1-to-1. Average ratio, player ratio. If I show you here, I'll show this on the screen. I'm looking at this number here. That's telling you what the typical multiplier is between their cards. And what that means is that Allen Iverson and Tim Duncan cards are essentially selling for the same amount. Now, they have different rookie years. Again, 96 versus 97. But in terms of their status in the list of all-time greats, Duncan, somewhere around typically like 4 to 8 for most people on their list. And again, best power forward of all time. And then Iverson's typically hovering in the 30s for most people, maybe as high as 25, maybe as low as like the low 40s, like 42, 43, just depending who you ask. The big difference is Duncan never had that personality, that charisma, that hype. And boy, did Iverson have that. Iverson has the iconic moments, stepping over Ty Lue, kind of being the one who willed the Sixers, albeit in a loss, to the finals against the Lakers. And so there is a big difference in terms of like that magnetic attraction. But again, if you start looking at how people collect like vintage all-time greats, they tend to go to like the top 10s, like the top players of all time when they collect those cards. I have to think again that Duncan moves up that list. I'm less confident in Duncan than I am in Shaquille O'Neal, but I still think that Duncan has a lot of potential. And again, there's no promises on any of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe people just never get excited about Tim Duncan. I'll tell you, his rookie cards are a lot cooler and a lot more exciting than Shaq's are, and he does have a lot of amazing cards. So I have to think it's only a matter of time before people just say, look what this guy did with the Spurs, big fundamental, he was incredible. So let's get into football now. Let's talk about football. And when you talk about football, let's actually wander an aisle over and see if we can find any cards here while we're talking. But I want to start with a couple of quarterbacks, being Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. So this one here, this 2001 Upper Deck Ovation Drew Brees autograph, PSA 10 on-card auto. It's serial number to 250. I haven't looked up how many have been graded, but I'm sure it's actually nowhere close to 250, as happens with a lot of these older sets. Drew Brees to me and Peyton Manning, two of the top 5. I would have them in my top 5 to top 6 quarterbacks of all time. I have Peyton Manning at number 2 on my all-time list. And then Brees is probably in the 5 to 6 slot in my mind, depending on how you stack things up. And I'm excluding Mahomes right now because I don't like to put active players into that conversation. So put Mahomes to the side. I think he finishes at number 2 when his career is over. Maybe number 1, outside shot, you never know. But like, compare this Drew Brees card for $2,000 in PSA 10 condition, and he does not have a ton of rookie cards, to the card right next to it. CJ Stroud downtown, PSA 10, of which there are many, actually, way more than people would be led to believe. Go up a notch here to this Jaden Daniels vertical color blast. Jaden Daniels has horizontal color blasts. Jaden Daniels has a kaboom and another kaboom, and he's got other kabooms, and you got Bo Nix kabooms. All of these cards in the ultra-modern market for these guys. And Drew Brees has a rookie on-card auto without a ton of options for the same price as like this myriad of stuff. Now, what I'm looking at, and we'll put this up on the screen here, I'm looking at it on my phone, is a comparison of Drew Brees, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana. After Tom Brady, who's just definitively at number 1 on the list, these are the next 6 guys that I would have probably on my list of like retired players on that 2 to 7 list, okay? Now, Drew Brees, he's actually leading, second only to Tom Brady in passing yards, total career passing yards, career passing touchdowns. He did a lot, and he won a championship, obviously. He was Super Bowl MVP, and then if you scroll over and you look at Peyton Manning, you've got him. Obviously, he won a couple of championships. He won 5 MVPs, which is more than Tom Brady, who I believe won 3 regular season MVPs, if I'm not mistaken. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong on that number. But Manning, to me, for a long time was like, I thought he was better than Brady. I know I'll catch a lot of flack for that in the comments, but if you just watch with the eye test, his ability to read the line, calling audibles, how he went about the game, I thought Manning was a better player. Unfortunately, except when it came to the biggest moments. He had that effect that like Clayton Kershaw and some others just in the biggest moments don't seem to perform well. And it's really frustrating for a player's legacy. But he did win a couple of Super Bowls, largely because of his defense, to be honest, in those games. So I look at some of these players and I compare the prices, and I used that same intelligence reports in Market Movers. And I found that Tom Brady on like commodity cards has a 5.64x multiplier of Peyton Manning just on stuff that's like everyday selling, on the market over the last 30 days. If you go into the high-end market, Prism Golds and other stuff where they have the same cards, it is like head and shoulders above and beyond that. And it's even worse for Breeze, who's like 7.64x on his commodity stuff. And obviously, like Manning's kind of commanding a premium, like a 30 to 40 to 50% premium over Breeze. Those two guys, to me, stand out as the two quarterbacks who I think are the most undervalued. Some people may be yelling, well, what about Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is more polarizing. He just is. He's a more polarizing figure, whether you like him, you love him, you hate him, whatever. I couldn't stand him when he played because he tortured my Lions, but that's sort of neither here nor there. It's just in general. Look at a guy like Peyton Manning, he and Eli. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Funny commercials, magnetic personalities. They're funny, commentary, in-game commentary that they do where they bring on Belichick and other people. And then you got a guy like Drew Brees who's just undeniably a likable, good guy. He's a good guy. He's a fan favorite. Both of them seem to me to have like way too much separation in their prices between Tom Brady. I get it. It's the GOAT of GOATs. It's kind of like Jordan and then Kobe. But I think they should be worth a lot more than these other guys. And I think it's only a matter of time. So I wanted to highlight them. Within football, I would also highlight positional players, okay? And I'm going to show you some cards and one player in particular in just a moment that I picked up. But let's talk about other positional players. It's really tough because a lot of these guys have very short-lived careers, okay? And certain positions aren't always the most highlighted. But when we see like the top 100 players every season in the NFL, I think there was like 3 years in a row where Aaron Donald was the #1 player in the NFL, rated the best player in the NFL, okay? That says something when you're talking about a defensive lineman who can crack the #1 spot in a quarterback league where they always win MVP. Let's talk about running backs, a few names. Adrian Peterson and LaDainian Tomlinson. Those are the two names that come to mind for me. Absolutely incredible. We are starting to see more focus now on like fantasy heroes. Guys are going back to the 2000s and into the 2010s to running backs who carried their teams or who had epic runs of 1, 2, 3, 5 years. I recently bought a Precious Metal Gems, the gold kind, numbered to 50, of Priest Holmes that I'm super pumped about because Priest Holmes he got my fantasy career started and he got my Chiefs fandom started. It's a Ravens card, but it's absolutely awesome. Those types of players are starting to climb up. But LT, LaDainian Tomlinson LT, and Adrian Peterson are in like a different stratosphere of what they accomplished during their careers. And I think their cards are still criminally undervalued, especially when you look at today's. Wide receivers, I'm going to go Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and I'm going to go Larry Fitzgerald. And then if we put up on the screen, I'll show you, just looking at like top 10s, okay? Isaac Bruce. I know Isaac Bruce, like maybe people don't remember him a ton and he played for a long time, which is part of why he racked up the most receiving yards. But still, I mean, 15-year career, that's not like super long relative to everybody else. Not as long as Rice. He had an incredible career. Greatest show on turf. Part of that team with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt. You got Tony Gonzalez in terms of tight ends, Tim Brown, Steve Smith Sr., Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne. These guys, when you start getting down to that lower list, Steve Smith, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, their cards are so cheap. For top 10 players of all time at their positions. It's unbelievable. And then if we go defensive players, I think you could just go into all the different positions, pick the top 3 to 5, defensive linemen. Bruce Smith, Reggie Wayne, Von Miller, J.J. Watt. We've got T.J. Watt active now. DeMarcus Ware. Start stacking up all these guys. I know there's a lot of Jared Allen, a lot of players like that, right? Get into the linebackers. Patrick Willis, Luke Kuechly, Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher. Get into the secondary. Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, Richard Sherman, Darrelle Revis. Even a guy like Nnamdi Asomugha, who was really big. At what point is the hobby going to say, we got to appreciate greatness in a sport like football more than just at the quarterback position? I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know. But from my perspective and in my mind, These are players who are absolutely dominant at their positions. And if you can pick out players who are top 5 at their spot within a game, literally like of all time or for a prolonged era, there's opportunity to me. I just think there's opportunity, there's upside, and maybe not a lot of downside with where their prices are currently. All right, that's football. I want to jump over and let's look at baseball next. All right, the first player we got to talk about in baseball, criminally undervalued, is Albert Pujols. Now, that's not to say his cards aren't expensive. They are expensive. But Albert Pujols, let me tell you some things about Albert Pujols. First of all, my favorite baseball player of all time. He's really, when I got into baseball, was like right around when Pujols was breaking onto the scene. That's when I got really serious about baseball and became a big fan of it more and more over time. 4th all time in home runs with 703 home runs. One of the best 10-year stretches in MLB history, hitting. 2nd best first baseman statistically behind Lou Gehrig, and you could talk about eras and differences and all of that. The last 10 years of Pujols' career hurt his legacy and his collectability, in my opinion, in spite of padding his statistics, at least in the short term. But at a point, we've got to realize 703 home runs. Who's going to do that again? Anybody? I don't think anybody's going to do it. I don't think anybody's going to do it anytime soon. Judge isn't going to do it. I don't think that Ohtani's going to. I don't know. I don't know who could possibly do that. We're talking about, getting into the upper 40s consistently, low 50s in home runs over and over and over for a 10-year stretch. Okay, it was unbelievable. And you look at his card, his Bowman Chrome Auto, which, by the way, everybody loves first year of every set that is in existence, or it seems like. That's the first year of Bowman Chrome Autos. So you would think they'd have a little extra cachet, a little extra special. His BGS 9.5 with the 10 auto, we'll put it up on the screen, sold for $34,300 earlier this year in May on Golden Auctions, okay? One thing to point out, some of these autos actually have been wiped and redone. There is some controversy around that. Just be aware of that if you're considering these cards and do your research. It's not what I want to talk about right now. But that sale of $34,000, when you're comparing it to all the different cards that sell today of all these different players, it's like peanuts for his Bowman Chrome Auto, of which there are not as many copies as its serial numbered to. It's actually unbelievable that that card in the top grades doesn't sell for at least $60, $70, $80, $100,000 in my opinion, based on the performance. Let's talk about a guy like Ken Griffey Jr. Okay, Ken Griffey Jr., and this is where I gotta highlight that performance isn't the be-all end-all. It is not, at least not right now. It is not the be-all end-all. People focus much more on the overall personality and package and the hype and everything. So what I want to do next is we're going to put up on the screen Pujols' career numbers to Ken Griffey Jr.'s career numbers. Now we know Griffey had some injury issues. He played about 300, 400 fewer games than Pujols. Pujols had issues too and got super old and just played longer, okay? But the stats are very clear. 101 career WAR for Pujols, 83.8 for Griffey, 703 home runs versus 630. Career batting average better. I like to look at OPS plus, 145 OPS plus for Pujols with a 918 overall OPS versus 136 for Griffey. And then you got 3 MVPs for Pujols. You've got 2 championships for Pujols. Pretty much the entire left side showing Pujols' career stacks up in green. And if we switch, let's switch the image over to their best, I put it an 11-year stretch. So this is 91 to 2001 or 2 or whatever for Griffey, and then 2001 for 11 years for Pujols. Again, even during their peak, Pujols pretty dominantly head and shoulders, maybe not dominantly, but above Griffey in terms of performance. The personality matters, the whole swagger, the kid, the backwards hat, the highlight reel catches in the outfield. Yes, all of those things matter. I'm not trying to take Griffey down a rung. He's the most important baseball figure of the modern era since the 90s in terms of baseball, iconic players. But Pujols deserves significantly more respect, So what if we compare him to a guy like Mike Trout, okay? Mike Trout kind of like took over the baseball scene and started racking up those WAR numbers when Pujols started to fade. So honestly, in terms of like eras, you had like Griffey into Pujols into Mike Trout. Now Barry Bonds is throughout that too, and then Derek Jeter for all of his, championships is in that mix. But Trout's a really good comparison, and if you look at Trout's ultra high-end market, including his Bowman Chrome Autos, that's where the head scratchers start to come into play when you compare the price differences between Trout and Pujols. And for that reason, I think Pujols is very undervalued, and I think he has a lot of potential. The other spot that I want to highlight is more like a position. And I know I rag on this a lot sometimes, but I talk about it realistically with where things are, but pitchers, and specifically starting pitchers, and specifically the most dominant and greatest starting pitchers of all time, and it's dying. The starting pitcher role with longevity and extra innings and complete game shutouts is dying. It is basically dead. The most complete game shutouts any pitcher has this year in Major League Baseball is two. Two players have 2 complete game shutouts. That used to be far more of a regular thing for the most dominant pitchers. They would pitch the full game all the time. So if I were gonna highlight 4 pitchers, I would highlight Pedro Martinez, I would highlight Greg Maddux, Randy Johnson, and Roger Clemens. And I'm gonna pull up in Market Movers, in their sales history, some of their biggest sales. So give me a second. All right, so if I pull up these prices on Market Movers in sales history, I'm looking at all the comps, the biggest sales this year, sorted by price. This was a recent sale, actually happened just last week. This was a big sale, honestly, for Pedro Martinez, $10,200 for his essential credentials in a PSA 9. Look at this. This is a Flair masterpiece, 1 of 1 of Randy Johnson. There are not a lot of Randy Johnson 1 of 1s from the 90s. I can tell you that. There's probably like 6 total across all sets and different things. $9,760 for the most dominant strikeout pitcher of that era. Greg Maddux, Precious Metal Gems, numbered to 50, $6,600. When you start talking about these card prices, and then you look at what some of the other stuff from the 90s sells for, that's where I start scratching my head. These players, you know, relative to Barry Bonds, relative to Ken Griffey, relative to the hitters, significantly lower, and they went out there and they did something that is honestly remarkable. Pitchers get the big payday in baseball. Obviously, teams and franchises recognize how important having a dominant ace is for your playoff success, especially. Why doesn't the hobby recognize that pitchers are incredibly valued when they build the resume and the career? Don't get sucked in and overhyped into a guy like Skeens, who's pitched, you know, now for 2 years. He's amazing, okay? But he hasn't done it yet, and there's so much money into it. These guys did it. Randy Johnson did it. Greg Maddux did it. They all did it. So show some respect to their markets and pay homage to their legacy and their greatness. I think they're undervalued. I think they deserve more respect. And on that note, that brings me to another point where I want to talk about some of these discrepancies between basketball prices and football and baseball. I got to go get my case of cards. Let's sit down and look at some stuff. All right, hey guys and gals, before we get back into the rest of the video, I've got to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Courtyard.io. And you've seen me in the past on the website talking about the different benefits of Courtyard. Obviously, mystery packs you can rip, full transparency into what you're going to get. You can store them, keep them vaulted with them, sell them, have them shipped back to yourself. You got a whole bunch of options and a lot of ways to participate. But what's really exciting is it's on the go now. You've got a mobile app that you can download. If you go to the App Store, just search Courtyard.io and download the app. And this is really exciting. They gave me $500 in credits. I'm going to rip 5 $100 mystery packs right now, and I'm giving them away to winners in the comments down below. All you need to do in order to win one of these is comment Courtyard and then put your Courtyard username. Make sure you're accurate, and we'll be doing random giveaways for these 5. I'm going to start with baseball in the master pack. Really cool. App is very clean, and as always, you can see there's a $25, $50, and $100 packs. And if you use code MarketMovers15, it's going to save you 15% off of your first pack up to $100 from any of the sports. I scroll down, I can see the expected value return on these, very transparent odds, and then you get down into what people have just pulled and the heavy hitters of all the different chase cards and what you can get from this repack. So without further ado, let's rip our baseball pack. Nice little animation, glowing. Whoa, Shohei Ohtani moment of the week. They're saying I could sell it back for $90. So they have the 90% buyback on any card that you pull. So we basically hit the odds right at the value of this. Let's go into basketball. All right, Kyrie Irving, PSA 8 out of 2012 Panini. So this one, lower on the floor. Let's go ahead and do football. All right, we got a Joe Burrow PSA 10 out of Donruss. This is his 2020 rookie. And then let's go back and take a look at the Sports Master Pack. I'm gonna do 2 of these. We got a Bob McAdoo 1983-84 Star PSA 8 condition. All right, I'm opening the last pack. Let's go last pack mojo. This is a Peyton Toll Bowman Draft 2024 PSA 9 Chrome Prospect Auto Blue Wave with a buyback of 85.48. So I'm giving away all 5 of these comments down below. All you've got to do is have a Courtyard account, leave your username down below, and if you win, I will transfer that card to your account, no cost, and make sure to use code MarketMovers15 if you haven't done Courtyard before, or even if you have, you can save 15% off of your first pack, any sports pack, $100 and under, Courtyard.io, and make sure to download this new app. All right, you guys, I did a thing. I was at Fanatics Fest, working most of the show, running around, doing different stuff. I stopped at a few booths, and a card caught my eye that I didn't have any intention going to the show of buying, but had come up in conversation the day before. We were doing a break. At the show, and as part of the break, we started talking about different positional players in football, like I just was, and Terrell Owens came up. And I was like, man, TO cards are just so cheap. I think he's like 3rd all time in everything. Receptions, yards, touchdowns, somewhere thereabouts, maybe 4th in one of those. But it's basically, in terms of statistics and dominance and the way they played the game, it's like Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens. And like Randy Moss, Terrell Owens are somewhat close, honestly, in terms of their stats. So I'm walking around to a booth, and I saw this beautiful card. If you don't know it, these precious metal gems from Metal in the 90s. This is the red. There's the red and the green from the set. And this one is serial numbered 145 out of 150, okay? So what they did was, in basketball, it's actually the 1 to 10 are the greens, and the 11 to 100 are the reds. And then in football, they did them to 150. So the first 15 are the greens, and then the rest of them are the reds. What's crazy about this is that the Global Pop Report, so how many copies of these cards have been graded by PSA, Beckett, SGC, CGC? It's like 22. I want to say it's 22, give or take a few, off the top of my head. I looked it up, like, okay, how many of these cards exist? It was like only 22 out of the 135 that exist in the reds have actually been graded at all with any of the companies, and this is the highest grade. BGS 8.5 is the highest grade. I believe there's 2 of these and an SGC 8.5, and then everything else is lower. Everything with PSA is lower. So the highest graded copy of the 3rd best wide receiver, statistically, of all time, and I don't really see how anybody could have him past number 5 on their list of all-time greats, from arguably the most iconic 90s set in existence, parallel set or insert or otherwise, the most iconic set for football. And that card I negotiated with the dealer a little bit, but it was pretty much around fair market value. I paid $3,700 for this card. Now, those of you who know, I don't really dabble in cards in that price range typically. I'm more in the couple hundreds for different things. You know, sometimes I stretch beyond that. I like a diverse collection. But this card just screamed to me incredible upside, and I'm being very transparent about that. This isn't a pump and dump or whatever. I'm telling you, I bought this with the anticipation that I believe that football, precious metal gems, and baseball for that matter, although they don't have the red and greens in baseball, have a lot of potential. And here's why I'm saying that. If I look at market movers, I type in precious metal gems into sales history, and I start scrolling down. Maybe you saw the deal that Jeff did at the National where he sold his Scottie Pippen red PMG. This is not it. I believe his was a PSA 7, and he sold it for more than this. Might have been a 6 even. This is a BGS 7.5, a Scottie Pippen, PMG red, numbered to 100, like I said, a little difference, that sold for $18,400 in April of 2025. Terrell Owens, Scottie Pippen. Where does Scottie Pippen rank all time in the NBA great list? He's definitely a top 100 player, but he was Robin to Batman on the Bulls. Terrell Owens, yes, he's a diva. I get it. A lot of wide receivers are. You kind of got to expect that. Let's keep scrolling down the list, though. Okay, we're in Rodman territory. There's a lot of Rodmans here. This is, by the way, just this year. Here's Stephon Marbury in a PSA 7. $13,200 for Stephon Marbury, okay? Jerry Rice is at $13K in an 8.5, less than Stephon Marbury. So I think that price gap is probably appropriate between Rice and T.O. 13 versus 4, let's call it, like a 3x multiplier for the GOAT receiver. I get it. I kind of understand that. I'm not going to argue with that. Arvydas Sabonis, highest grade, Pop 1, $12,200. Like, you could keep scrolling down the list and keep going. I'm trying to filter past like the Marvel stuff. I want to say there was like an Alonzo Mourning on here somewhere at one point. There's David Robinson for $8,100, which is kind of weird seeing him below Arvydas Sabonis. Again, hobby doesn't always make sense. But these prices, Steve Nash, $6,900. Like, I get it, maybe with Steve Nash. There's the Alonzo Mourning. You're telling me an Alonzo Mourning in a BGS 8.5 for $6,100 should be worth more than Terrell Owens? Like, that doesn't make sense, guys. That doesn't make any sense. And when I see that stuff, I act. When I see that stuff, I act. It's a beautiful card, color match card. I think this card, I think that Jerry Rice should be a $30,000 card. That's my opinion. I'm gonna scroll all the way back to the top and tell you why. I think that Jerry Rice should be a $30,000 card. If Tim Duncan's $30,000, who I know I said earlier was cheap and Shaq was cheap, kind of ironic here, then I think Jerry Rice should be $30,000. And if he's $30,000, I think this is easily a $10,000 to $12,000 card. I think it should be. If Arvydas Sabonis is that price, I think this card should be that price. Okay, so that's PMGs. I also bought another card recently, and I bought this card. This is an AJ Green, okay, numbered to 49. This is a National Treasures, RPA, early years, and it is actually event player worn, okay, at the rookie photo shoot. Rookie premiere photo shoot says it on the back, okay. This is gold, numbered to 49. On-card autograph. Unbelievable design, in my opinion. Horizontal in the earlier years. I prefer the design of these early NTRPAs over the more recent ones by quite a significant margin, but that's personal preference. But this card for AJ Green, take a minute and guess what you think this card sold for, knowing what cards sell for today. Knowing that like base Prism PSA 10s of some of the wide receivers sell for, $75, $100 when they come out of the top ranked players and other things. I bought this card for like $80. $80, like cheap, dirt cheap, okay? So what I wanna do is I actually wanna look at, let's look at Julio Jones. I'm gonna do 2011, and let's do, actually I think I can just put it in like this, okay? Julio Jones he's like around the top 15 in receiving yards all time. Absolutely dominant, okay? Now these are his early RPAs. Here's one, for example. This is a BGS 9.5. This was a PSA 8, by the way, as you saw. $921 for his, with an absolutely incredible patch. Here's the number to 49, $870 in a PSA 10. The prices are honestly a little bit all over the place in terms of his NT RPAs. And what I want to show you, I actually want to compare this. I want to compare these NT RPAs, and we're going to do this. And then I want you to see, well, here's Jimmy Butler, $13,300. But let's keep scrolling down. Here's one. Russell Wilson also, I think really cheap, honestly, $2,200. He's been a fantastic quarterback in the NFL. Super Bowls, everything, $2,200. This is back to that gap between football and basketball. And so I'll keep scrolling down a little bit here. Now here's a Jimmy Butler, numbered to 199, raw, ungraded. Great patch, fine, but there's a lot of great patches in these football ones too. $1,000, numbered to 199, okay? AJ Green, like, I know he's not like in that top upper echelon, but he was very good, very, very good. And Julio Jones, very, very, very good. I keep scrolling down. There's Russell Wilson. There was another one that I wanted to get to. I'm actually going to put in, here's Draymond. Here's Draymond. Okay, I get it. He's part of the, Warriors dynasty. Where do you rank Draymond in basketball compared to Julio Jones in football? And this card, raw, numbered to 99, $708. Okay, I don't know. Let's take a look, though, at some modern guys, too, just for kicks and giggles, right? All right, here's Puka Nacua. And I'm looking at, these are numbered to 5. There's a lot more of these, by the way, the numbered to 10. But even if I start scrolling down, again, he's got a billion of these too, because now in NT they do all the different horizontal, vertical, midnights, USA, whatever, all this different stuff. So there's a lot more choices. Like this card isn't even, that patch is terrible looking. It's kind of the shadow box auto. But these are all in like the $600 range. That's Puka Nacua. And then if I look up like somebody like Jordan Addison, who was a rookie a couple of years ago, let's scroll down. Here's his midnight again to $2,300. Like some of these guys, I know it's the nature of the market. We talk about it, like with ultra modern and everything. But some of these early RPAs, they don't actually surface very often. They're beautiful cards for top tier players. And again, I don't understand the price discrepancy. I don't understand the gap. They seem very undervalued. And if you like collecting all-time greats, if that's part of your collecting style, is just to collect all-time greats, then I think you honestly can't go wrong with these. Just they're very cost-effective relative to the other newer stuff if you like RPAs. So that's really interesting. And again, I'm telling you the one that I own here, full transparency. I picked it up because I thought AJ Green was a great player, and this card was way too cheap to pass up on. Okay. Another thing that I want to talk about is 2016 Optic. 2016 Optic is first year Optic, and it doesn't command anywhere near the premium or prestige of like 2012 Prism or other first year sets, 1996 Topps Chrome, other things. Now, Optic in general just has kind of fallen off. A few years ago, about 5 years ago, people were having more conversations about whether Optic Holo rated rookies or Prism Silvers could like take over long term, and Select was kind of in the conversation too. Optic just has fallen off. Prism has become the clear leader, and I get that, but I don't really see the premium on first year Optic that you would expect. Like again, people generally tend to like first year of different products, and so far it really hasn't taken off that way. If you were to look up like gold refractors of Kobe or Steph Curry, or their super refractors, I guess gold vinyls, other things, it doesn't seem like anybody really cares. Like you might see, oh, first year Optic in the listing title, but in general, they just haven't really taken off. I don't know. Will that happen at any point? Does anybody care? Do you have any thoughts on that in the comments? I'd love to hear it. So that's kind of what's going on with some of those, like, I think different discrepancies in years and stuff. One other thing I want to highlight here, some cards that I own, and I would say that these are like case hits that fly under the radar. So a product that I really like is called Luminance, and this will presumably be the last year of Luminance football. It recently came out. The rookies are in their college jerseys, which I don't personally hate because sometimes I go after Notre Dame and Michigan State stuff, but that's kind of the nature. But the inserts are absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to start out with this J.J. Watt Shining Stars. This card is like a $30 card, and it's a case hit. It's an absolutely beautiful card. I think it's stunning, but it's actually my least favorite of the three different sets that I'm going to show you. Let's switch to this next one. These Jubilees. These are out of 2020, and there are Jubilees from different years, and some look better than others. Really dramatic cards, beautiful foil finish on them, just honestly stunning. They really make an impression, and on the back, they say like, the back of the Breeze says, with a 5-yard touchdown pass to Josh Hill versus the Colts on week 15 of 2019, Breeze passed Peyton Manning, 539 for most touchdown tosses in a career in NFL history. So like there's these, little anecdotes, these little stats, little highlights of what the thing is, why it's called Jubilee, what did they do on the back of the card. So I've got Christian McCaffrey, and I've got Drew Brees, and I've also got this awesome Lamar Jackson Jubilee. And so they're highlighting specific moments. It's kind of like a game-dated card. And I also have this card here, which is a Derrick Henry. So this is my favorite year of the Jubilees, which is why I go after the 2020s. And then there's this other set called Moments. And Moments is a really beautiful set, very dramatic. And again, this kind of highlights a specific moment. So the back of the Lamar says, youngest NFL MVP 2020 season. The Gronkowski says, Super Bowl champion February 7, 2021, okay? So they're highlighting specific moments in these players' histories. Very dramatic, very clean, awesome foil lettering. They definitely suit my fancy. I think because Luminance is kind of a set that flies under the radar, people don't know about these as much, but these cards honestly hover in price depending on the player, anywhere from $25 up to maybe $100. And they're every bit as rare as, they're actually more rare than Downtowns, significantly more rare than Downtowns, and probably more rare than most of the new Kabooms as well. If you were to go look at the pop counts of these cards, some of the players, I have a Jerry Rice that's a PSA 10 that's a pop 1. It's pop 1 in PSA 10. And then I like this set so much. While I was out looking at the shelves today, I actually saw they bought this card at the National and brought it back. This is the Tyreek Hill Platinum 1 of 1, which is the only parallel in the set. So there's the base set case hits, and then there are these Platinum Blue parallel 1 of 1s. And this one says 13 catches, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns on November 29, 2020. Massive fantasy performance, massive, one of the biggest games ever for a wide receiver between the yards and touchdowns. And this is a 1/1, and you can see I paid $150 for it. Honestly, I think they had this undervalued. I think this is a $250 to $300 card. Tyreek's fallen off a little bit, but I think they had that really undervalued. The other product that I would highlight, and I've talked about it in the past, is Court Kings. Court Kings is basketball specific, and Court Kings, you may have seen during the National, Jeff bought a complete set of the 2017 original blank slates from Court Kings. Absolutely stunning, beautiful, beautiful cards. Again, simplicity, maybe it's my style preference, but I think blank slates are among the best case hits in existence in any product, from any year, from anything. And also in Court Kings, you get these awesome cards called Auroras that come out, and the design changes every single year. Also case hits, really beautiful artistic design. I think all of those very, very, very much fly under the radar relative to the Kaboom and Downtown and Color Blast crowd, and even the stained glass. And they hold their own aesthetically, visually. Over time, I just wonder, you know, as we sort of age out of the Panini era and we get 10 years down the road, will people start discovering some of these that are even more rare of their favorite players like Lamar and Drew Brees and others and go, holy cow, these are ultra chaseable, very difficult to locate and target. I'm gonna try to track down some of those. So that's one thing. One other thing with the licenses switching over to Topps now, coming this fall, starting with basketball and football next year in the spring, image variations. Image variations have never taken off in Panini products. They've had them, Prism has had them in some years. It's the alternate images for cards, but in baseball, they're huge. In baseball, image variations, SP, SSP, SSSP, Ultra SP, they do these like different things over the different products. And it's basically the base card, but with a different photo on it. Well, there was this set from Topps Chrome, and I'm gonna show you here. This was from 2014 Topps Chrome. These are all image variations. So I've got J.J. Watt, Rob Gronkowski, and Phillip Rivers as some examples here. These cards are actually very difficult to track down. Like there's not a ton of them graded, there's not a lot of them out there. They would basically be qualified as like SSPs in terms of how many exist and what the stated odds were. And also, obviously, a great image. Like Gronk spiking and J.J. Watt roaring with his chest out. I mean, I don't think you can get any better than those two images in terms of being iconic. And these were like $15, $20. Like super, super cheap. Very, very cheap cards. Upside. I see stuff like that and I gravitate to it and I go, I'm going to buy it now. I'm going to love having it in my collection because it means something to me. I like it. And if it pops off and it goes crazy, and all of a sudden these cards, people decide, oh, there's only like, you know, 10 of these graded, and you get a 10, maybe they start, maybe, I don't know, maybe it goes up 5, 10, 20x. You don't ever know. So I see that stuff and I tuck it away, collector mind with a profit upside. That's how I like to think about things. Where I want to close this out is actually just around a couple of sports that I think I have the biggest potential. The first is soccer. I'll keep saying soccer, and it has been. Messi cards, going crazy. Messi cards are going crazy. Lamine Yamal cards are going absolutely crazy. So soccer is starting to get more love. There's more happening in Europe. There's more happening overseas in general, in Asia. PSA is setting up locations. Fanatics opened their store in London. There are card shops now opening and getting distribution. David Adams is over in Europe. They're getting accessibility. The Europeans are getting accessibility. Asians are getting more direct accessibility, allocations, all exclusive products, all kinds of things. The more that happens, the more soccer, the most international sport, the most watched and loved sport internationally in the world, is going to get a ton of love. One other one that I'm just not sure about, but there was recent news around, is UFC. Paramount Plus just signed I think it was 7 or 10-year deal, 7-year deal, $7 billion to get the licenses to UFC, so no more pay-per-views. Now you can just watch it on Paramount Plus, which means people can watch it, have their friends over Saturday night, watch all the main cards, the top UFC cards, and watch those. By the time this video comes out, there will have been a really exciting one with Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev this past Saturday. I don't know who won because I'm recording this before it, but I plan to watch it. I like UFC a lot. There's some issues in the UFC with star power lacking and getting that charisma, and if there's no pay-per-view, maybe they don't hype it up as much. At the same time, just more views, more eyes, might get more people falling in love with that sport with mixed martial arts. I think it's really captivating, and so UFC could have some more upside and more growth potential in the coming years as it just gets more ratings and more eyeballs overall. That is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover today. There's a lot of opportunity. Again, a lot of undervalued stuff, and it's not so much that it just has to be profit-minded. It's finding niches and finding corners of stuff that you can think is really cool that just makes you go, this card's awesome. Why isn't it more expensive? This player was awesome. Why isn't he more expensive, or she? A lot of cool stuff, a lot of avenues, a lot of rocks to uncover. And honestly, like, I've been very successful with this. You saw some of those Marvel PMGs as I was scrolling through. That was a big hunch years ago and it paid off big for me. Dynasty, unfortunately, just budget-wise, I didn't have the money to put into big Dynasty RPAs, but I was right about that. Dynasty cards are blowing up over this past year and coming up now, and I think they will continue to do so. So I'd love to know from you down below. Let me know in the comments, what do you think is undervalued? What do you like collecting that you think just has screaming good value? Could be anything, could be 90s, could be all the way up to now. I always like to read your comments, and I really appreciate you watching this. Now, I've got to say one thing. You have to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe, because we are going to be doing a 50,000 subscriber giveaway, and we're like 1,500 away. I'm planning to do a video. We're gonna do a couple of box breaks, and I'm gonna be giving away all of the cards from these box breaks to viewers. So we'll have more details on that. But if you are not subscribed already, please go down and just click that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Like the video, leave a comment. And as always, until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.